Hello, hey, what's up? Good morning. It is 6:35 in the fucking morning. 6:36 if you want to be exact. Since we are talking watches, and specifically I'm going to be fixing up an Omikron Jumbo. For those of you who don't live in the Balkans, you probably have never heard of this. This is an Omikron, a 50s watch, Swiss made. It is, again, 6 in the fucking morning, so excuse the poor lighting, but we will try and clean this thing up today. First symptoms, it's not holding a wind, so something's gone awry with the click, and my fucking god, is it filthy. We also see some discoloration on the dial there and there. The case, bent to shit. Yeah. or no, is that a spring bar? Sorry. Nope, still bent. Let's go ahead and start taking this thing apart. And first things first, I want to get this case cleaned up and then go wash my hands, because this is awful. These are, ironically enough, the better cases of these Omikrons, because the later models use some really weak alloy that just sucked, and holy shit, that is oxidated. Wow, that is rough. That is really rough. Does the balance swing? We're going to pull just a little bit. It does. The balance is actually alright. There's just shit falling out. Are there any movement screws? There is one. I do have some sad news. I fucked up my usual tweezers. I have a preferred tweezers, pair of tweezers, whatever, and I have broken the tip on them and have not yet gotten around to grinding a new tip, so we'll be using these, which are fine. I just like to use those. I should also sharpen all of my screwdrivers, but not the time right now. Let's go ahead and take the key out, or the stem, which is easier said than done. Sweet mother of rust. I am unscrewing it slowly, but it is not yet enough to get the key out. Yikes. Actually fucking yikes. That is disgusting. I also changed the time. Doesn't fucking matter. Let's pop that out. There we go. Yeah, that sucks. We'll try to clean it up best we can. It's a shame these dials actually really are nice, and for how cheap these watches are right now, I don't know if they were. It's a damn fucking shame that you rarely find them in like really good condition. This is totally 100% original version and not from AliExpress. Excuse any possible slight bit of swap in my work today. I haven't swapped. I have pulled an all-nighter because I just was not tired. Get those hands off. No loom on them. The loom has fallen off, with age. This is stuck in there real fucking good. There we go. You probably shouldn't be doing this the way I'm doing it, which is going to be a common theme throughout the whole video. I'm going to get the second send off along with the dial. That should be fine. I don't have tools fine enough to get it off any other way at the moment. This is awful. This is genuinely fucking awful. Oh, right. Going to leave that for later, if I can find a plastic bag to store in. And I'm going to put the case in gasoline and let it soak for a minute. This is medicinal gasoline. It's what I use to clean watches. I don't have a watch cleaning machine, so I use traditional methods, so to speak. Those of you who know what Omikron is know that something isn't right here. Those of you who know the least thing about watches know that something isn't right here, because the dial says 21 rubies, the mechanism says 17 rubies, and what's supposed to be in there is this. This is an Adolf shield or an AS 1130. This is an original mechanism for one of these watches, signed Omikron as they did, which goes into the jumbos, is what they're called. Whereas this is an Unitas, except it's also not an Omikron movement, because Omikron used signed Unitas movements, and it's the wrong color, it's the old color. So this has been finagled with, but it hasn't been finagled with post drowning incident. I do have some parts for these, which is good, because I don't have any parts for the Adolf shields, so I would be kind of boned. And I'm not going to be changing the movement because the watch is in nowhere good enough condition for me to warrant putting in a nice movement. We'll be restoring it as is. So we might as well begin disassembly. Let's get the balance off. I really need to sharpen these things. Far from good, but good from afar. Considering the shit I've got in my room to work with, this is completely decent. Yeah, no, see, that actually works. It doesn't skip when it's not fucking dull and bent in 15 different ways. Then again, that is in no small part my fault, because I use screwdrivers as pry bars. I think we're there. That's off. And that is off. That is our balance complete. This is usually where you would let out power. So this is a 6310, which is an older version of the 6325 and the 76, the predecessor, so to speak. I'm sure they are part of a series. I'm not sure which it is. These movements are often referred to as Wehrmachtwerk, which are war movements, and they are really quite decent quality. A lot of watches use them, Omikron just being one of them. And they are really nice to work on. And that is nice to see. Clear rubies on the pallet fork, which is interesting, and it is a common feature, so to speak, in these older movements. But let's first and foremost, you asshole, put the balance away. I just like to do that because I am not at the proficiency or knowledge level where I can take apart the balance complete, so I'll have to clean it separately and oil it as a complete setup. I've seen rust here, you know. And this screw, of course, is reverse threaded. Not only that, but these can also sometimes be reverse threaded. Don't ask me how I know. And you know, if it's going really tough, make sure it's not going the other way, or supposed to go the other way. And that is looking awful. No sugarcoating it. That looks like shit. This is supposed to come off. That little in between bearing doesn't really want to do that. Not a big deal. I'm sure it will with cleaning. And the mainspring barrel wants to go with the bridge, which I cannot allow. And actually, before I do that, let's remove the cannon pinion. This is the dial side. Some call this the top, some call this the bottom. Cannon pinion removal tool, of course. The same tweezers. It is a common theme that I will be mentioning some very expensive tools, and then I will promptly be crushing all of your hopes of me using them, because this is the tool. These tweezers, yeah, universal. Cannon pinion is off. You don't want to pull it to the side, you want to pull it off, so I still let it slide along the tweezers, right? I'm not holding it so tight I twist it. You get it, or you either get it or you don't fucking care. These parts right here is what we in the business call the keyless works. As to why we call them the keyless works, well, you see,
this is the part of the watch that replaced what used
before
to be
the keyless works there was a key, and then they invented a system that gets rid of the key. I'm not going to go Marshall on your ass. Marshall from Wristwatch Revival, great guy, cool guy. I'm going to leave that up to him. If you want to hear that explanation, watch fucking any single one of his videos, honestly. Oh my poor summer child, what have they done to you? And by then I mean me. I have even finer tweezers than these. I mean, they are all AliExpress specials, don't get me wrong, but I don't want to ruin these. All that's left now is that stubborn fucking screw in there, at least on this side, right? Oh, the gears are nice and shiny. Almost completely out of place in a shit fest such as this one. That's always a good sign when the mainspring barrel wants to go along with the mainspring such the winding bridge. You know, it's really clean and really in great condition. That's really all of the parts to a watch like this. Let's pop this thing open. I do have a specialized tool for this, actually. It's called a block of wood, but this block of wood is special because it's made with love. So we wanna put it this way. I use plastic tweezers for this. You don't have to, I don't think, but you do. There is probably a specialized tool. I think you can guess what's coming next. So, taking that top cover off. Now for the real annoying bit. There is a tool for this, at least for putting it back in. And that tool is mighty fucking expensive. And mighty fucking specialized. So I haven't really gotten around to it yet. People tend to say If you don't have the tool, don't bother. You're more likely to damage the mainspring than you are to successfully replace it. But because this watch has been in what I can only assume to be a lake, I will have to service the mainspring just for good measure. Also, don't do this, by the way. Remove the barrel arbor before you remove the mainspring from the barrel, because it will go flying. But I'm stubborn, so I'm not doing that. You see how much the mainspring is just bouncing around. Yeah. And this is the original mainspring. You can tell because it doesn't have a curve in the other direction here at the end. Instead, it just goes in one spiral, fairly clean on the inside, which is nice to see. Like, that's really about it. What you can expect on a simple movement like this. Simple, but actually really high quality. Let's see what the case is like after soaking for a bit. It can really only be described as atrocious, but at least I'm not actively taking radiation damage anymore, which is nice. I have probably contracted about 5 diseases in handling it so far. I'm glad I've put a stop to that for now. Good enough. This is my jar of gasoline, by the way, after that. So I have to go get some new gas and clean this out. Oh, cannot forget that. One clean jar of gasoline, which is going to go ahead and not do anything for now, because I have to first get oxidation off of all of these parts, and for that I will be using a different jar of gasoline. Why the fuck is there a screw in here, man? I will be using a slightly harder bristle brush. For this step I will also be putting a paper towel underneath the parts I'm cleaning. I will then go ahead and employ my favorite tool, which is just a toothpick, and I will get to scrubbing, which means music for me, time lapse for you, and a whole lot of time, which is why I started so early in the morning, because I knew this was going to be a long fucking process. Right, some progress has been made, some progress hasn't been made. This is now perfectly serviceable, as is this. It's not winning any beauty awards anytime soon, but it looks fine, especially compared to, you know. I also got this off, the crown stem holder, right, the pin that holds it in. Yeah, I'm just cleaning, still cleaning. Onto this bridge now. The parts are clean, well, clean in terms of oxidation, nowhere near clean in terms of assembly. I think that's fine. Really, the only bits left are aesthetics. That's the mating surface that I just cannot get off to save my life. Yeah, you know, I'm happy with that. I think it looks nice. And most importantly, it's going to function well. So let's start with cleaning the bridges and getting a new paper towel and getting, well, just cleaning the desk up a little bit. Because I don't have the aforementioned watch cleaning machine, I have to clean all the rubies by hand, which we will do using a sharpened toothpick. So, shall we begin? Step number 1. Take the part you want to clean. Give it a rinse in gasoline. Take now a finer brush. Make sure there's no like microfibers, no particles, no dust, anything of the sort. And for now I'll still be touching it with my fingers, but also you don't want that grease on there either. Taking that little cap jewel off for cleaning purposes. That dark spot in the middle, that is just dried up oil and gunk. So of course has to be cleaned. And you just swirl around every single ruby. After doing that, it goes back in for another slightly longer rinse, just to get any possible excess oils off. And I use this sort 123 universal oil, which sucks ass, and you know, like Seiko's use fucking 15 different oils. But for this kind of work it's alright. Not ideal by any means, but it's serviceable. I oiled that ruby first because it's capped and therefore I won't be able to get to it later. We can now put the base plate on the movement holder. And that is our starting point. Let's start with the mainspring. Get that part done and over with. Really the idea is the same. Getting any old oil, dirt off and putting new oil on. Cut the little elastic bits at the end so your fingers don't suffocate. And you can see just how much dirt / old oil there still was on the mainspring. Which is why we always give it another rinse, another wash. This is what I'm doing, by the way. I just don't want to do it in front of the camera because it's really flimsy. There is a couple of ways you can go about this step. Some people do it one way, some people do it another way. I'll be doing it this way for now. Minimal amounts of oil. That is the name of the game with every single step in the oiling process. You do not want excess oil. And then just pull it through that oil that we've put on the tissue, right? Just pull it and oil the whole mainspring, or as far as you can get. With the mainspring now oiled, we take more oil and just put a drop if you would get up to the bottom of my oiler. There we go. Drop in one hemisphere, one half of the barrel, and then I drop in the other half of the barrel, sort of at like 180 degrees. to one another. If I remember correctly, it goes in this way. All gloved up. Now be careful, because these old ones specifically do like to snap, but you will do one of these maneuvers, and then you just do the reverse exact opposite of what we were doing in the start. Not pressing too hard. You don't want to bend the mainspring, you don't want to scratch the mainspring or the barrel or anything. Look at that, all nice and shiny. And as we did on the bottom, like so. Nice. Take the top, forget the barrel arbor, don't put it in the wrong way. Take the block of wood, there we go. Take the cover. There is a specialized tool for this. I don't have it. I just use the same plastic tweezers we used to open it, to close it back, and it clicks into place. And everything is alright in the world. Just make sure it's all flush. It is. Great. And that is the mainspring serviced. Then we oil where it sits and slap the mainspring in. Nice. Let's go ahead and clean the other two bridges. Well, actually, whilst those are soaking, we can go ahead and clean the gears. Basically the same process. Take a brush, give them a rough dusting, and then I grab the gear like this, and then I clean the pivots and the teeth and everything basically, but inspecting it, making sure there's nothing missing, there's nothing bent, there's nothing broken or damaged, there's no hairs, no dust, anything. Finally the escape wheel, and that is all cleaned up. Now we can go ahead and get the bridges cleaned up, so let's also take the ruby off. In the meantime, the gasoline is evaporating from the gears. Obviously, you want to make sure there's no sawdust or anything left, any wood particles on the toothpick. So you just take a tissue to it and wipe it off. Right, that is kind of the limitation of this. You just cannot get into that ruby well enough to clean it from the inside, right? Unfortunately, that is just how it be. You don't want any ridiculous amounts of oil. You just want a tiny droplet in the middle, which is more than enough, because otherwise all of that oil is going to just make its way into every other part of the watch. Central ruby in the middle, lack of ruby currently, but that right there, right? You want to oil that now, because you're going to forget to do it afterwards. And you also want to oil this a little bit on the gear that goes there, which is just a little bit easier to do. If you're servicing a Seiko, this has about 15 different oiling points and about 3 different oils, right? The one with the longer pivot, that is your small seconds hand, and the small seconds is always 90 degrees to the key or the crown stem. So that's how you know where that one goes, if you are doing this for the first time. If not, you probably just know instinctively where to put what. Mounting this bridge is always just a little bit of a hassle. Nothing major. But there we go, first try. Can I just express my love for these screws specifically? They are some great fucking screws. Now you're going to put yourself in the shoes of a car mechanic and tighten these one at a time and not all the way tight. Just, enough to hold the plate on. And then give it one more spin. It spins nicely, then you can tighten it. Before we can put this guy on, we have to clean this thing right here, which is the thing that you screw in to hold the winding stem, the crown stem, the key, whatever term you want to use. That's what it does. Well, not directly, it holds the part that holds it in, if you want to get technical. There we go. And that goes in there. And just give it a turn. That is spinning nicely. And now we can put that bridge on. Nice. Let's assemble the click. That's what gives you the sound when you're winding a watch, and that's what makes sure it doesn't unwind like it was doing in my case. It's a ratchet, basically a ratcheting system, right? And I don't know what screw that was. It was that one, wasn't it? Almost lost it. Yeah, that seems about right. These springs are super fun to work with. They are one of the best parts of watchmaking by far. And they aren't annoying at all. I use a toothpick, hold one side of it in, and just press the other side in. Like that. You didn't see jack shit because it was out of focus, but trust me. Then we take the click, we take some oil, okay, we can now take the wheel that goes on top of here. We can then also go ahead and automatically just use the screw for that. How did I manage to do that? That is genuinely impressive. Interesting. This is not it. Is this one it? I don't remember. Was it rusty as fuck? Possibly. Makes sense. If it screws in, it is. If it doesn't screw in, it's not. Same as with toothpicks, when you sharpen your screwdrivers, make sure you clean them off. You don't want metal dust in your watch. If that ratchets, we have fixed the problem. If it doesn't ratchet, we have not fixed the problem. But we won't wind it too much because we haven't oiled most of that yet. So just a couple. Yep, nice. Ratchets. In an attempt not to bore you too much, thicker oil here, thicker oil on the outside of the little washer. We slap the washer on there. We take the gear, slap it on there, take the screw, slap it on there. Remember, reverse threaded, so spin it to the left. That is that part of the movement done. Now we go on to this part, which means pallet fork bridge. Might as well toss the cannon pinion in and all of the other stuff actually. It can all go in the back together. Oh, I totally didn't screw the fucking bridge in. Oopsies. Cleaning the pallet fork, exactly the same process as the gears. Make sure all of the old oil is off the rubies. And I've made the bridge a little bit shinier. There are different schools of thought. Some people don't oil the pallet forks at all, saying it's a waste of time, especially in these older movements. Some people swear by it. Some people use special solutions to make sure oil stays right on the rubies and doesn't go anywhere else. What's the correct way? Not really sure, man. Just make sure there's some fucking oil on there, so it's not rubbing up against nothing at all. If you're thinking to yourself, wow, where was this macro all along? I didn't feel like putting it on. I can't even get it to focus for this one shot, much less continuously. Basically, I got oil on the two tips. Put the pallet fork in. Same as with that bridge, make sure always valve before tightening. Once again, some people do oil this top jewel, some people don't. I'm oiling it now because I won't be able to get to it otherwise. And that is that part done. Right, keyless. We have oiled the pivot there already, if you remember. So we just toss the cannon pinion on, and the cannon pinion goes on first before you do any other gears here, because you don't want to have to align that. Now for the most annoying part in all watchmaking, screwing that on, holding it in place with one finger, holding the movement, and as soon as the thread holds, you go ahead and you sing your happy little tune. I will now clean the other parts of the keyless works. We don't need that, and we don't need that for now. We need these guys. Now, also oil your ruby. That is down here. Now we begin assembling the keyless works. Here you can use the thicker oil again. So on any major pivots, such as this, underneath there, everywhere that's going to slide. So a little bit there, a little bit there, because that's where this part slides, and here where the spring goes. That's that for now. A little bit of the thicker oil on here, and then we take the winding stem. The way you oil this is a little bit on the tip, then you want to smear a little bit of oil on each and every one of these 4 sides, because those don't rotate, of course, but especially on these older watches you can be a bit more generous since they are getting up in age. Now we can tighten the key, lock that into place, make sure that actuates, and it does and doesn't fall out, and that is what moves your levers. So we want to insert this one in there like so. I didn't oil that, oopsie daisies. That slides nicely. Take the spring, gear. Did I oil those? I did. One goes here, the other goes here, and then this thing goes on something like that, and we can screw that in. Same thing, don't tighten it all the way down, tighten it about halfway, and then pop this to the side so that you don't put too much stress on it, because again, old parts, weak parts. And oil that, you can be generous with it. Butter, actual butter, beautiful. Turn it back around. Take the balance complete out of its bath, find a clean piece of towel, Jesus Christ. Now comes some high-ranking bullshit, and I don't recommend you do this the way I do it. But you finagle your oiler under the hairspring and into the ruby, just the tiniest bit of oil. You really don't want to have that swim in oil. And same thing on the bottom. There are better oilers for this, once you just click into position and they spew out oil, but this works for now. Then we can finally put the balance back into the watch. There, it goes there, and then something like that. That spins nicely. And now if we give it a wind, it should run. The mainspring is jumping around in the barrel a little bit, getting that hook on the end to align with the barrel. All that's left to do is hold on, I can for sure macro this. Fuck yeah. And there we go. That is completely oiled and completely serviced. We can put this last gear on there. This little washer. Right, so what you're looking at there is minus 70 seconds a day at a beater. I can't adjust because I don't know how to do that stuff yet. And unfortunately, decently low amplitude. It should be around 250, 270. So 190 is quite pathetic, but it's what we've got. The next step is the rest of the watch. Hey, that's actually coming off decent and nice. I can work with that. I think like you usually don't touch dials, and you really shouldn't. Especially if it's just minor blemishes, because chances are you're going to fuck it up further. Many have tried, many have fucked them up further, trust me. I'm not using water or anything, I'm just using a dry toothpick. And I don't have radical. Oh, the blue stuff is coming off too. That's fucking great. But it's leaving behind a silver trace, which is still better than fucking blue. Is there any way I can bring this higher up for you to see it a bit, you know, better, as the kids say? What I think has happened is that the oxidation has eaten through the coat of lacquer on top. I'm not sure what the dial itself is made of. And I'm most likely going to take off the Swiss made writing if I continue. Right, that's as far as I'm taking that, because I want to keep the Swiss made for shits and giggles mostly. I cannot clean the markers though, that's a little bit annoying. These are pretty rare to find in decent condition. I think I owned maybe one in like nice shape, but for some reason these dials just usually are tired. Like I have another one here which is in decent shape as well, but also time did its thing. I think I have one more from that series or that era. I don't have any cases for them though, unfortunately. There is quite a tight tolerance between those two hands. I don't know why the hour marker is that high up, or the hour hand, sorry. Right, I mean I have a cool, because it's not the original movement, the hands just don't fit. There we go, that now fits nice and tight. Tight like a tiger. Right, the case. The fucking case, man. Was I not recording? Fuck. Yeah. New strap, and this is the finished product. Shit, I didn't realize I wasn't. I didn't press record. Yeah, it's a Franken watch, and it is what it is, you know. I think it looks nicer than it did when we started in the morning, but it's still, you know, better off as a parts watch, really. So yeah, nothing special, nothing great. 18mm on this size is fucking hilarious, and the strap itself doesn't even try to pretend it's leather. They don't even write genuine, whatever. It is pure paper, and they are not ashamed to admit it. Fantastic quality. This is a slightly newer model of Omikron. Running, I'm not sure what mechanism, but solid watch, nice watch for all intents and purposes. This one is basically the same as this one, I think, but 17 rupees, so slightly newer still, and I need some parts for it to get it going, but also a nice watch. This is an automatic, but in a non-original case, so this is a case from an air metered watch, is what it's called, and the box isn't original, of course. This is DIY'd, but this uses an ETA movement, which is turbo fucking nice. You know, that's kind of the period when the abolish market, the micro brands, so to speak, were booming, when an Omikron, a relatively unheard of brand, was putting EDAs in the back. I think that's the same ETA that Doxa used in their Conquistador range of watches, so I think those two are basically the same on the inside. And I also have a darbell using basically the same ETA, or a similar ETA, I don't know. Again, I used to have more of these, just not my kind of watch, I'll be honest. I'm more of a smaller kind of dude. That is fucking massive. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, that is about it, really. It's also running turbo fast now for some reason, or is the minute hand loose? I didn't tighten the minute hand all the way down. I didn't want to deform it too much, and it was also loose on the pinion, so we'll have to see about that. Yeah, no, the minute hand just got loose. I'll deal with that in a bit there, because I know some of you won't be able to sleep at night without me fixing it. It's fixed. I have tightened it a bit, and now it fits snugly onto the cannon pinion. Yeah, that's about it.